Session and hearing from the candidates. The reason why I feel like I am continuing to run is because I am a daughter of District 5. I'm a daughter of Paramore. I understand the issues that lies within District 5. I've lived it. I continue to live in District 5, as everyone knows. And over the last 8 years, we have seen District 5 come so far. And I do believe that there is still more work to be done along with the community. When I first started 8 years ago, many of the developments that you see here in District 5 did not exist. Even the Carter Street Homeowners Association was not enforced during that time. Through our community engagement and my leadership, we were able to bring this homeowners association along with Paramore Homeowners Association and gave them a voice. And now you see the renaissance and revitalization of their leadership and my partnership here in District 5. So I do think, Pastor Spoonie, the reason why I'm running is not for a title. It's because of the work that has been done, and the work should continue under my leadership.
Thank you so much for that answer. Now, Candidate Rose, the same question. Can you please tell us why you have a desire to be the commissioner for District 5?
Now is more than just a campaign slogan for me. It's the character-defining moment of where we stand today. It's time for some change, and it's time for some inclusive change that includes the residents of this community. I live here in Paramore. I mentor here in Paramore. No, I'm not a product of Paramore, but I decided that it was my destiny to stay here, to live here, to work here, and to play here, to bring the change that we need. It's time for some leadership who's going to include the residents of all 18 communities of District 5. You know, I've been out here campaigning for the last couple of months, and as I come across people and I have engagement and conversations, I hear, well, I don't live in Paramore, so I can't vote for you. And I'm like, that's not the only part of Paramore. I want to be your next leader so that we can work together to bring change. It's time for us to work together to reduce the crime. It's time for us to work together on the homelessness. It's time for us to improve the infrastructure in this community. It's time to be inclusive of our seniors, of our youth. I mean, last week we had 3 teenagers have a shootout with law enforcement. It's just time for some change. We need stronger youth programming, and we need to be able to have open door policy where you all can come into my office as the next District 5 City Commissioner and be a part in the change that's taking place. Not get pushed out. Have a space and a seat at the table, and that's why I'm going to be your next District 5 City Commissioner.
Thank you.
8 years ago, when I went to City Hall, I had a 100-day plan that I shared with the community. And I kept my promises. It was under 5 pillars. It was under affordable housing, which had not been done in District 5, nor the city of Orlando. It was education. At that time, their children here in the Paramore area was going to 9 different schools and being bussed out. Now we have a community school that's preschool through 8th grade. We have a community college. We have a university. We have youth programs. As we stated, the youth are very important to me. And by that, I have brought over $4 million to the Paramore Kids Zone just this budget year, where we have expanded not just on the northern side of Paramore, but now we've extended to the Holden Heights community. We have created My Brother's Keeper in 2015 under my leadership. Now that budget has $2.5 million to help young black and brown boys in this community. When we start talking about seniors, I contribute to seniors right here in Paramore, even with Harold right there in the audience. He continued to advocate for a disability van, which cost almost $100,000. We got that van, Harold, under your advocacy. I have been a staple in this community, and I know the seniors, and the seniors know me.
Thank you. Again, Candidate Rose, if elected, what would be your priority of action for the first 100 days, and how would you address it?
Well, first we have to bring in our neighborhood associations. There's over 30 in our community, and we need to bring all of the presidents together to figure out what are the concerns, what are the needs. We have to be inclusive of this entire district, and that's what we're missing right now. Our students and our youth are literally out of control. It's time for us to bring stronger youth programming into this community. It's time for us to work on the infrastructure. There was a study that was done right here in Paramore, and almost 40% of the residents that live here don't have their own modes of transportation. So that means we need to make sure our sidewalks are all connected. We need to make sure we have better bus schedules. We have to make sure that the train and the sun, we spent a lot of money as a state bringing Sunrail. We have to ensure that the Sunrail and the bus is cohesive. We have to make sure that the residents and the people of this district that go to the Universal areas and the Disney areas for work, there is a faster way to get there. For me, reducing crime can only happen if we change the socioeconomic status. We need equitable employment opportunities. It's all of this great development, but people from the community are not working there. They're struggling, and so they are out there committing crimes. And the only way you're gonna do that is to ensure that we have equal jobs for everyone, specifically for our youth. We have to work together as one community, and that's why I want to be your next District 5 City Commissioner, to give you a seat at the table, so together we can initiate great things, not just be told as a community what we're gonna get. I want us to work together to bring the change that we need here.
Thank you so much. Moving on, our next question. Moving on to our next question. The city of Orlando has a blueprint for using community venues to create a sustainable economic impact in our communities. I know that it is not a prescription for, because that's not how it's written, it is not a prescription for revitalizing our city neighborhoods, but what it is an opportunity to improve the business climate in this area. So there are many factors. Here's my question. And this is to Commissioner Hill, and then we will roll over to Candidate Rose. What impact, positive or negative, do you think that the venues has had on the economy of Paramore, and what strategic steps do you offer to improve the plan?
First, I'd like to clarify that me as the commissioner, no other commissioner outside of advocacy has any impact on transportation. That is a length of Orlando transportation issue. So first, the commissioner needs to know what they can and cannot do. But in the interim of that, a youth and employment program was created by me with the assistance of staff there at City Hall. Under my leadership right now, we have over 1,000 youth working right here in the Paramore, downtown, and West Orlando and East Orlando corridors. So I'm really proud about that. When we start talking about the Blueprint program, the Blueprint program was created for the venues. While they were building the venues, as you know, Pastor Spooner, you're a strong advocate on making sure minority participation happened there. I am a Blueprint graduate. I have a small business called Regina's Original Building. I went on, when that program was sunsetted, it has been sunsetted, to create the Blueprint 2.0. The Blueprint 2.0 is a job program because we need to increase the wages of our community. And through that, I was able to partner with Valencia UCF to bring accelerated vocational training. Along with that accelerated vocational training that we now have is a $125 a week stipend for those that want to seek higher education and change their conditions and then have a sustainable and education, along with being able to have higher earnings. Now with that, I have just secured that we have just rolled out on October the 1st, will be rolled out, called RISE. RISE is a $2.5 million employment educational program for people that look like us.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose.
So when we talk about the Blueprint program, it was created by Commissioner Daisy Lynham as a way to ensure that the Paramore residents had an opportunity to get training and to be able to get jobs here. If we look at the data from this year, we trained 201 persons with the Blueprint program, and only 31 had jobs. So to me, if a program, it may sound good, but is it actually working? Is it functioning? Has the socioeconomic status changed of the residents? We keep talking about Paramore, but again, we have to be inclusive of all the other districts in this community. So it sounds great, but Blueprint needs to be inclusive of all of the development. Technically speaking, the development is building right here. That should be a placement space where our residents have an opportunity to work so that they can change their socioeconomic status. We have to be inclusive of the residents here. We can't continue to let developers come into our community and not include us. So that's what leadership looks like when changing blueprint and showing that all of the residents in District 5 have equal opportunity at jobs. And it's not just the Paramore residents. It's time for us to step up and start initiating things that come from us that we can work together to improve. The blueprint program is not serving its purpose totality, in my opinion, because we could do better, we could do more. And it's time for a change, and that's what I'll bring. We change the blueprint program.
Thank you so
I
much.
do have to have a response.
No, we're not having responses, rebuttals. You'll have
Sure,
to put
sure,
that
sir.
in. We'll just have to put that into your remarks. We're gonna follow the process 100%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Now, we're moving on because we got a lot of issues and we want to have, the world have been experiencing a dramatic rebirth. There's been great reinvestments in communities. This is called gentrification, if you will. And what that is nothing more than the displacement of an indigenous people in an urban core by forcing them to other areas. So, understanding this, how can you balance, and this is to Commissioner and the candidate, Rose will answer as well. Here's the question. In Orlando, there's an increasing investment of downtown which causes westward expansion. How will you balance the city growth with non-gentrification?
Well, thank you, Pastor Sweeney, for that question. But in the interim, please trust the messenger. Because when liars can figures, but the figures don't lie. And through that blueprint program, hundreds have been able to graduate out of that program and go on to receive higher wage jobs. One thing I'm a straight shooter and I'm an honest person, and you can trust me. Now, gentrification does happen, but what I have done under my leadership in the last 8 years is made sure that responsible growth has happened in District 5 and revitalization has happened. When you start talking about Paramore Oaks, you have at least 80% African Americans that live there. When we start going over to even Creative Village, the majority of the businesses are small minority businesses and African Americans included. When we start talking about the 88 units of the $1.2 million that was allocated to revitalize the areas here in the Paramore area that the Paramore Stabilization Asset Funds had, they are African American descent. Now 16,000 left, and that was not under my leadership. But what I can tell you is hundreds and hundreds are coming back. When we start talking about home ownership, we have created over now 10 homes and was passed another 10 to be built. And the first one, Shan got.
Candidate Rose, again, the question is how will you balance city growth with non-gentrification?
So I am a resident of the Paramore community, and I did get a house because I wanted to move back into the community and I wanted to be a part of this community because this community is struggling. If you're here and you live here day in and day out, you can see the issues and you can figure out the problems. You can work together with the residents to say, how do we make this better? You balance gentrification by ensuring there are ownership opportunities. So I am a millennial, and millennial wealth gap is 40% behind every other generation behind us. So that means we need leadership who is going to address the issues and build ownership. We have not had a house built in West Orlando in this community since 2019. We've got to do better. So affordable housing is a thing. That's something great that we've started, but we have to work together to create new opportunities. You can stop gentrification by ensuring there's a happy medium balance with job opportunities. You can't stop the displacement. There are other historically black communities that we can look and we can start encouraging developers that we can do revitalization in. We have southern part of Holden Heights where we can say there are opportunities for you to grow so that we're expanding and we're staying within this community.
Thank you so much, both of you, for those great answers. I want to move on to our fourth question, if you will. Here it is. One of the variables for a thriving, robust community is affordable housing. your comments both are segues into this question. Do you think multifamily housing is the best solution for the housing shortage? If so, why? If not, why? And again, we start with Commissioner Hill.
Well, thank you. I do believe in order to create generational wealth, there has to be single-family home ownership. And over 2 years ago, I created a home buyers club right here in Paramore because I knew that I had an agenda to build 52 homes for homeowners here in Paramore. Shan Rose, as a city employee, was part of that program, sitting to assist us. But she got the first house and not the person in Paramore, the other 49 people that sat in that class. So I think we have to be mindful of when you choose leaders. I have not came and purchased here in Paramore. I think that the home ownership and the multifamily affordable housing should be for the people. It should not be for politicians and city employees. And we have to have mixed income neighborhoods. We can't just have all low income affordable housing. It should be mixed use, and that's what I'm trying to create. I have fought hard and long when I got to City Hall. In 40 years, there had been no housing built in Paramore. So I think now we're at 14 since 2019. That's great. We have 10 more to go that was just voted on last Monday for $10 million to build another 9. By this time next year, you will see another 20 homes going up in Paramore, along with townhouses that we're working with the HUD and Vivian Bryant. So me growing up as a little girl here in Paramore, not having a home bedroom, inadequate living conditions, no heat, no AC, mold on the walls, and plumbing is a primary function for me, and more senior housing. When you think about housing and you think about wealth, there is a gap. But I have, under my leadership and the collaboration of community partners, over 1,400 affordable units have been built in District 5. And that has happened in the last 3 years, more than anywhere in Central Florida.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose, the same question.
Affordable housing includes affordable ownership opportunities. So that means we have to work together with private investors and say, we need your help bringing affordable housing. City government cannot do it all, because the more city tax dollars you spend, at some point you're gonna have to start taxing people. So we do need to bring in the private investors that want to build affordable housing, but besides that, we have to hold them accountable. We have to ensure that they're providing financial literacy to the residents that they house to ensure that they're getting out of poverty. It's one thing to give somebody a place, but are you helping them to get out of their circumstances, out of their situations? So for me, affordable housing includes affordable housing opportunities and home ownership for individuals so that we can work on the wealth gap. We have to ensure that we create policies to govern the way these new communities are being built. Paramore Oaks has had shootings over the last couple of weeks. There is a lack of homeowner association. So those are things that you create policy to ensure that when new development is coming in, there is some sort of structure. There is some sort of way to say, here's the path. You've got to build pride and unity in the community. You can't just build a building and put everybody together and think that it's all going to work out, because that's not how communities work.
Thank you so much. You both have answered the questions with great passion, that particular question. You've answered the question as to where you stand on multi-family housing versus apartments. So here's another portion of this question, and again, I pose this to Commissioner Hill and then Candidate Rose. You both have talked about what you think it ought to work, but what are your specific strategies that you will utilize to lure or get investors to invest in affordable single-family homes in Paramore?
Well, I will continue to use the same strategy that I started out with 8 years ago. The city of Orlando is the largest landowner here in the city of Orlando. And with that, we have a bargaining tool. We have land. We have a funding here in the CRA to use some of our tax dollars. And I believe we should put our tax dollars back into the people's hand. It's theirs from the beginning. Then we can work with the Florida Stabilization Housing Network. they have what we call tip dollars, to where they can help us close that gap so that the places can become affordable. And I'll be honest with you, the way that I operate with developers that want to invest in Paramore anywhere on city land is that it has to be about putting the people first and not profit. People first and not profit. And by that, I have made sure, it's not just by happenstance 1,400 units were affordable, because developers are into making money. It has been because I've made demands. My vote and the people vote means something. Because when I'm on the day off, it's your vote. It's not my vote, it's your vote. So every time I vote the conscience of the people. I vote the conscience of the people and what's good for the people of District 5. And if it isn't good for District 5, it's not good enough for my yes vote on that day off. It's not good enough for you to come into our community and build. And that's what I will continue to do, is advocate hard and advocate strong and be the conscience of the people when I'm sitting in rooms and doors that's closed that you are in but you're not in. I will continue to stand with the people and for the people. And that's why we have created over 1,400 affordable housing, multi-family housing, and 52 more to go.
Thank you so much, Candidate Rose.
So for a city government to own land and to sit on it while there are investors that want to build is a problem. That means that there isn't leadership willing to go to grain and say, this is what bargaining looks like. Here is the land. Let's donate the land. YMCA, and I'll use an example outside of city limits, but the YMCA was leasing the land and they were given the space and the place down in Tangelo Park. We have to start saying we're not going to harbor and harvest land. There are developers that have asked and requested to meet with the city to build on the 52 lots that are owned here. We can't just sit down. The government cannot do everything. We need a lot more public-private partnerships. We can't continue to do it all. For me, the Paramore Asset Stabilization is a great program, but what the people don't know is the city government sat on it for years, and the people that were living in shacks, their rent was being increased. A lot of money for the shacks that they were living in with no improvements. City government was well aware of this. We have to look at some of the issues happening in some of these apartment complexes that city government is well aware of. We have a low-income housing or mixed income housing where strategically the landlords have placed utilities into the lease, and they've also placed cable into the lease. So if you're a Section 8 voucher person and you can only pay a certain amount of money, if 1 month the average person can pick up and say, hey, Spectrum, I can't pay, can I get an extension? Well, you can't do that. You will get evicted. And there are places right here in Paramore that leadership is aware of and has done nothing about. What it also looks like for affordable housing is collaborating with legislators to ensure that we can do some sort of rent control in this state, because we don't have one. So we know that it's coming. We also have to address and work with legislators on all levels, both in the state as well as the federal, to ensure we start looking at the poverty line. Yes, we can increase minimum wage, but if the bottom poverty line is not being addressed, then we have an issue, and we will continue to have these issues.
Thank you for those answers. You both show passion for housing, affordable housing in the community. And again, this forum is brought to you by the Callahan, Jackson, Carter Street Neighborhood Associations, and so I just wanted to give them that commercial. They are doing what they do. Amen. I'm going to change direction right now. I'm going to change direction, if you will. Many residents have expressed concern about the amount of power and decisions made with little input from the community by our local government, whether it's the right thing to do or not, or whether their complaints are legitimate. That being said, here's a question that I want to pose to each of you. Would you support term limits for the office of mayor and city commissioner? If yes, why? And if no, why not?
Well, I think that there are term limits. It's when the people vote you out. That's your term. But I do want to readdress the Paramore Stabilization Asset Funds, because those 88 units, they were something that happened under my leadership, and the city cannot enforce anything on a private developer or a private owner. Now, what I did do is partner with them and to rehab those 88 units And what I did is went a step farther and said if you wanted these city funds, that you would have to keep these 88 properties affordable in perpetuity. Perpetuity is 99 years. And that's what I have gone out and started doing, is making sure that when we are giving taxpayers monies, that there's stipulations to make sure that there's long-term affordability. So would I support term limits? I support when the people vote me out, I will say thank you, and I appreciate the time that I served, and then I will pack it up, and I will give the baton to the next person and try to lead them with a playbook that I wasn't left to start over to continue the work.
Thank you so much, Candidate Rose.
I do support term limits. In fact, let me tell you why. So here locally, the vote is controlled by the city government. So of course they don't want to change the rules, and of course they don't want to see term limits. In fact, 48 days before election, we still didn't have polling locations. As a candidate, where is the fairness and the equitable opportunities to reach my voters and let them know where their polling locations are? We just had an election in November, and we don't have the same polling locations. City government has not worked to say where were the polling locations, where do people get out to vote, and how do we make it equitable? So yeah, there are no term limits wanted because they can control the vote. They can control how things are going. And as an incumbent, they have the unfair advantage over opponents that want to see change and that want to bring change to this community. So I do support term limits like every other government agency above the county, the state legislators, the governor, and the president.
Thank you so much. Okay, both good answers. We feel your passion. Next question. The community redevelopment area and the downtown development area, which you both are familiar with, are primarily located within the boundaries of District 5. As a matter of fact, all of downtown west of Rosalind and north of West Gore Street is in District 5. As a commissioner, you will also be, as you already know, a member of the CRA board. That being said, what is your reaction to the increase in microbreweries and nightclubs opening in downtown as a result of the city's goal of increasing nightlife in that area? Again, first we go to Commissioner Hill, and then Candidate Rose will answer that question.
Thank you, sir. First of all, commissioners need to know what their limitations are. There's nothing that a commissioner or the city of Orlando can do about polling sites. That is under the watch of the state of Florida and Bill Cowherd at the Elections Supervisory Center. They determine what sites those are. So next, microbreweries. Well, I do think there has to be, and I'm working on that as we speak, a moratorium within the Paramore area of microbreweries. What I do want to see is business development and economic development, but I don't think here where we still have challenges that we have to get through, that we need more nightclubs, alcohol, microbreweries, or 1,000 food trucks, which my opponent supported 25 food trucks and alcohol in Paramore that I had to fight diligently against, that was killed there in council.
Thank you so much, Candidate Rose.
So in 2016, the city did something called a nighttime economy study, and here we go, making sure we're bringing consultants to study, and we're not actually using their plans. We discussed what does that look like to put moratoriums on, and here we are 6 years later and we don't have a plan. So it's time to go in a different direction. It's time for new leadership who's going to listen, who's going to be able to say, let's talk about this. We can't continue to just make the decisions and have a stronghold over this community. I was not part of a 25 food truck. I listened, I heard about it, and I said, okay, well, what does this bring and how does this impact the community? And that's what leadership looks like. How does this impact the community? How will you bring it to the community? Can you bring in 25 food options because there's a lack thereof? Can you bring 25 different food options without the brewery? What would it look like? What's the impact? That's what leadership is supposed to do. That area has sat vacant with a lot of crime and a lot of homelessness that needs to be addressed. We can't continue to just let lots sit empty. We can't continue to have these empty places We have to be able to go in a different direction, address the community needs and the community concerns. So we do have to sit down as a community and let's draw zones. Let's figure out where we want to stop things. Downtown already has a moratorium of tattoos. It's based off your square footage. So how much square footage is available? And let's look at, let's draw it out. Let's figure it out together. As far as the polling locations, the city controls the finances, and the supervisor of elections is contracted by the city of Orlando to delegate the votes. So yes, they do have full controls because they strategically use their sites and their locations for polling. So that's it. That's my answer.
Thank you so much. Again, passion and commitment from both is being shown. Moving on, from a policy perspective, economic development, I want to talk about economic development. It really can be defined as efforts that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community. And you do that by creating jobs and retaining jobs and growing incomes or supporting existing incomes through whatever measures included the tax base. Therefore, economic growth is an increase in the capacity and I'm not an economist, but I do know this because I am a business person, the capacity of an economy to produce goods and services, okay? Many politicians actually confuse the two, economic development and economic growth. That being said, what will be, Commissioner Hill, your economic development strategy for the western portion of District 5, specifically the area beyond John Young Parkway?
I do want, I think this is very important. I have to clarify, because I don't want the people to be bamboozled, that when we start talking about economic development and leadership look and listen, you're absolutely, my opponent is absolutely right. But when you look and listen and they tell you they're going to bring 25 food trucks from Kissimmee with no inclusion for the people of Paramore, we got a problem. It looked like gentrification for me because there was no African Americans there. They told us in leadership that they had to taste the food first before they can give a black food truck an opportunity there. We don't need that type of leadership. I will continue to say that when we talk about economic stability first, because we still need to sustain the small African American businesses that we have on the west side of John Young. And what I have done under my leadership and with the assistance of the community of West Lakes is create a main street over there. We have given them over now $100,000, have hired an African American, Antoinette Giles, about 3 weeks ago to connect with the small businesses there, to develop small businesses, give them the tools and resources that they need, but also have that equity and inclusion and commit a board. So as we speak, work is being done on the west side of John Young underneath now our 12th Main Street. The 11th Main Street was created now going on the second year in Paramore, where I have implemented the same strategies, and we're going further west. And hopefully we'll continue westward to where, as what you've seen in Soto and throughout Thornton Park, will be duplicated in Paramore and also in the West Lakes of Orlando.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose.
Economic development looks like asking the community what their needs are. Being able to say, what do you need to make this a sustainable community? It sounds great to continue to tell people what to do, but if you're not asking them what do you need and what do you want, then what are you really doing? Economic development includes ownership opportunities. That means a wide diversity of meeting the needs of the community, whether it's hair salons, whether it's black-owned clothes businesses. We have to be a diverse community. We have to work with developers, and we have to control the development because those things have long sustaining impacts on our environment. So we have to make sure we're monitoring that. Where are things being built? How are things being built? Are we improving what's here? What do we need to do? And that can only be done by engaging with the community and letting them give their take on what their needs are for economic development and economic growth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Listen, there's a question that comes out of that, your answers. As you know, at one time I was president of the African American Chamber of Commerce. I served for 5+ years in that position. So economic development for minorities was a passion of mine. But there was always one thing lacking, and that was proper training of minority business people so that they can learn how to run a business, not off the seat of their pants. That being said, since you both champion are speaking as champions of small business, what do you think the city's role should be in providing training for budding African American or minority entrepreneurs? Again, first we go to Commissioner Hill, and then we go to Candidate Rose.
Thank you, sir. So I think we should continue down the path of collaborative partnerships with the Entrepreneur Center, where we give $150,000 a year to assist small businesses and help them develop. Working with the African American Chamber, Tanisha Gary at this time, the president, and assisting them with resources. Something that and also BBIF, Ms. Inez Long over there, where they have multiple resources and they have funding mechanisms to put in place for small businesses. Continue to budget our MEBA fund, especially for the MEBA program that sits here in Paramore for small businesses. But I want to go a step farther. I have been working diligently with Walter Hawkins, Thomas Chapman, Mayor Dyer, UCF to create, and I think this is instrumental, to create a small business incubator right here in Paramore. Right here on the west side of Orlando, because sometimes it is a challenge for small businesses to go all the way to the east side to receive these services when they're still here 9 to 5 trying to keep their businesses open, when they are sometimes the owner and the operator. To make sure, and I have reached out to the Entrepreneur Center and BBIF with the fundings that we have allocated to them, that they do more, at least a quarter of workshops here on the west side and go mobile versus being stagnant and stationary there on the east side. So those are some of the things we're looking for building. I have tasked our city officials to look and purchase a building where myself and staff have traveled throughout the state looking at models for small business incubators. That's on my wish list, and that's something that I have advocated, and I'm hoping soon to come to fruition.
Thank you. Candidate Rose.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, what, I can't remember that. Trainer, thank you. Somebody help me.
Leadership that listens.
That wasn't written down. That was off the top of it. I didn't write that down. I don't want to take the training. What's your opinion on how do you think the city ought to help small businesses get trained?
So first we have to include our youth, and we have to expose them to entrepreneurship opportunities at a young age. And a lot of them do things, I mentor youth here in the community, so they do things like they want to go cut the grass and they want to make a couple dollars. But you have to teach them what that structure looks like at a young age, not when they become an adult and this is a desire for them. So for me, it's starting off with the youth, exposing them to entrepreneurship, exposing them to training of what it looks like of a business. Bringing our leaders. I mean, we have some millionaires that live in our community. I mean, the wonderful Derek Wallace is a double-digit millionaire who lives right here in the community, who we can bring in and expose our youth to opportunities. What did it look like? How did you get there? I mean, we have Mr. Hughes here from KBI talking to the youth and saying, this is what entrepreneurship looks like. This is what ownership looks like. Training is ensuring we have the path, ensuring that you have a business plan, that you're not just going and saying, this is what it looks like, but that one-to-one contact, that reach one, teach one, and you expose others to the opportunity for what it looks like to run a business. For me, there are a lot of businesses and organizations in this community with training. They do need to be in the community. We do need to look at bringing them all the way to the west side and including. I also think for small businesses, we do need to work on a program, two things. We need to start a business task force so the businesses can come together and they can talk about what their problems, concerns are, and we can educate them on the financial opportunities that are there. But I also want to start a program where some of our corner stores we revitalize. A lot of the corner stores are dingy, and I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them are. So let's work together to revitalize our communities, because in our communities, our corner stores are where we travel the most.
Thank you so much. And to this group of diligent residents, let me apologize, I won't go off script. I don't remember all of that stuff. Can I get a witness? Amen, amen. Listen, the influx, we're gonna move right along. The influx of homeless residents has caused our already overworked social welfare organizations to come to a breaking point. This is, in your opinion, do the state of Florida and the federal government provide the necessary financial resources to properly meet the needs of our homeless citizens? And again, I'll start with Commissioner Hill and move to Candidate Rose. And while you're answering that, when you come up to that answer, depending on what your answer is, what do you think that the city council can do to improve the situation for those who are living homeless, especially on perhaps public property?
Thank you. Well, I do think more needs to be done in Washington when we start talking about funding and resources. When we start talking about the state level, they have rape and rapist Sadowski funds, and that can address affordable housing and housing first programs where we can rehouse and shelter those that are experiencing homelessness. Now, those that are experiencing chronic homelessness, we have done a great job, I think, with the collaboration of others in the service network industry. Now, when we start talking about Paramore specifically, which has a condensed ratio of those experiencing homelessness, we, in our budget cycle, just on Monday, passed almost $2.5 million to those agencies to house, to give wraparound services, to give some type of medical services. But I think it goes a little further. We have a crisis when it comes to those homeless residents here in the city of Orlando and throughout the nation, if you may ask, that are mentally ill and have substance abuse issues. And no one's addressing that. And I have convened all the service network folks that are getting city funding to convene a plan to address mental health and substance abuse and case management. I have asked the city staff to go out and help find a facility so that we can triage, stabilize, treat, and then help them be housed. Because unfortunately, many of our homeless folks that you see now that are homeless can't be housed because right now they're suffering from a lot of mental health challenges. At the state level, they need to address mental health. They have stopped giving funding to institutions that can house those that are mentally ill or that have substance abuse issues. They give them a 3-day respite on a Baker Act or a Marchman Act, and they release them back with no case management of services. That has to change.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose.
So to address the homelessness, first you have to do good governance. We have to look at how are our tax dollars being spent in these organizations and what are the outcomes. Outcomes have to be quantifiable. We have to look at the data. There is a large issue. They are here. Mental health illness can only be addressed if we start taking an aggressive approach. We don't have a long-term mental health facility within this region, and that is the first thing. We have to look at how do we house them and how do we house them safely. We also have to look at, are the programs providing the services that we need? We do not have a trauma center in this community, and there is a lot of trauma that we face from day to day. So for me, as your next District 5 City Commissioner, we will work together to say, how can we address it together? How can we bring in the private partners with the funding to say, let's look at the program. What does the program look like? There was a moratorium placed on social services here in Paramore, so we cannot allow another building to be built in this community to address the issues. We have to look at other places and other spaces so that we can grow as a community and we can grow as a community together. A few weeks ago, I had a homeless individual that was having a mental health breakdown right here on Paramount Avenue, jumped in front of my car. I have my 6-year-old son who doesn't understand that. That's not a way for our children in this community to grow up. So yes, we do have to address it. We do have to look at the social services. We do have to get to the root cause of what caused the homelessness. But we also have to say together, where is the best place so that it's spread apart and it's not all concentrated in one community.
Thank you so much. Now, this is a question that kind of segues on your answers. this is we want to get a feel for what you think. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. But first, Commissioner, and then again, Candidate Rose, why do you think it's so hard to get people off the street?
Well, Pastor Spoonie, you know, I wish I had a complete answer for that. I wish those throughout America had a complete answer for that. As I traveled the nation from Houston to Seattle to Los Angeles, homelessness and those living on the streets has been a challenge for those around the nation to resolve. For right now, you can't put enough money into it to resolve it. So, you know, I'm someone that's very honest. Only thing I can do is continue to try to slow down the bleeding until we come up with a nationwide solution. This is going to take thought leaders from around this nation, not just one lone commissioner, but it's going to take a community also. It's going to take the churches. It's going to take organizations. It's going to take those in the mental health space. It's going to take those in the Orlando Health and Advent Health. They really led the way in the beginning with putting over $6 million. And as we see, it's not gotten better. We see tents popping up throughout Central Florida in our neighborhoods. And it's sad, and that's why I say we have to, because those people living in the tents are human beings too. No matter what. There's somebody's daughter, there's somebody's son, there's someone's auntie or uncle. So how do we treat them first? We have to treat them. As a nurse, we have to treat them, stabilize them, and then find case management, ongoing case management. So people have relapses or mental breakdowns or get off their meds, or someone lose a job after they finally got a house, but they lose their job and they're right back on the roads of homelessness. So we have to start that with case management, triage, and building more houses.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose.
So in 2019, as a city employee, I researched and collaborated with several other organizations across the city and across the state to create something called a homeless court. The city, for the first time, applied for a DOJ grant to bring the homeless court here. What it did was, homelessness has been criminalized. You have to first take that criminalization out of the homelessness and reduce recidivism by connecting the individual with the resources that they need to get out of their cycle. You have to get to the root cause of what led a person to be homelessness. It's not always a substance abuse. It's not always a mental illness. Some of it is just situational. Right now, there are a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, and one paycheck could cause homelessness. So you have to get to the root cause of it. You have to initiate programming. We can't just continue the work. You have to work with other cities, other communities, and say, what did you do to solve your homelessness? We cannot turn into Skid Row here in the Central Florida, especially District 5, where we have tents popping up. We have to create sustainable housing, and we have to do it rapidly, and we have to do it aggressively. And you have to work with the private industry and the private world and say, this is what we need. How can we help you? How can you help us help our community and help those that are out here?
Thank you so much. We're about to run out of time. They're looking at me, so this is going to be my final question. And then you both will, after you both answer this question, you'll be given 3 minutes to summarize your position. And this question is this: what will be your strategy to address racial inequities in this community? And how do you plan to encourage effective cooperation between the police and the local residents to combat crime in their neighborhoods?
Well, I've already started to lead the way with that, and with council and Mayor Dyer creating a equity officer that has now taken a position to look through city policies and city departments to see how we can better serve, because sometimes you got to start at home, to see how we are doing it right or doing it wrong when it comes to inclusion and diversity. I think and I hope that I advocate not just on the dais, but in the community when I'm working with community leaders and thought leaders and developers and business owners. I believe in people and purpose. I don't focus on politics. Sure, I'm Black, but I know we need all kind of people to help us in our community. So I pride myself with working with anybody that want to work with people to help others. When it comes to law enforcement and crime, first, it takes strong neighborhood associations and neighborhood watch associations. The community also has a responsibility when it comes to crime and reporting crime and being out there as the eyes and ears to protect their communities. But when it comes to law enforcement, I think I've done, at least I've tried, to bridge the gap between law enforcement and community, what we call 21st century policing, by putting over $1 million into that space and giving the community a voice. One thing that District 5 knows is Regina Hill. I have been at every meeting that I have could be at least 5 or 6 pre-COVID, a week, for 8 years straight. Whenever I've been called, I've been there. I listen and I go back with a solution. And when it comes out, just afford me this, when it comes to our police officers, I've helped create neighborhood patrols. I've had a neighborhood task force assembled. I've given $800,000 to the Bowman Group to go out and do an extensive survey to come back with a plan that we're now going to implement.
Thank you so much, Candidate Rose. You will have 2.5 minutes just to make up the gap.
So let's look at a few things. So in 2019, I was an SEIU union steward, and our issue was there wasn't enough equitable opportunities for the minority group. So that was the reason why Equity Officer was created, to ensure that at home was taken care of first and not just the community. We have a director of constituency who's supposed to be in the mayor's office working for the people and working with the people. We need to work at looking at how our tax dollars are being spent and are they being spent properly. We had the Bowman Group bring in a 200-page research that doesn't address the real needs. We need to look at the community engaging in saying, what are your issues with law enforcement? What do you think we can do differently? Crime cannot change if we don't bring economic opportunities to our communities, especially our young people who are out here committing crimes. Again, we had 3 teenagers shooting with law enforcement last week. Houston, we have a problem. We cannot continue the work that's happening right now. It's time for us to start initiating programs that's going to benefit this community. Law enforcement, so interestingly enough, law enforcement diversity is important. And that takes for leadership to stand side by side with law enforcement and say, I want to encourage the community to become law enforcement officers. Because if we continue to go down the path of allowing, not encouraging people to become police officers, then we get what we get who joins the law enforcement academy. Recently, I took part in addressing and changing the law enforcement academy, where our officers go on to ensure that they are taking more inclusionary training, that they are getting more hours, that they are diverse in their understanding of communities. We have to ensure we have the best officers on our street, and that includes a 2-part fold. Residents being able to boldly speak up against racial issues that they're having with law enforcement, but the support of the community and leadership. And then the opposite way around, when there's issues with the community, being able to say, let's work together with the law enforcement, because 911 is who you call when you do have an issue.
Thank you so much. You both have done excellent in your responses to the questions that have been answered. We're now going to come to a close, and we're going to give you each 2.5 minutes to summarize your positions and give us your final statement. Is that okay, Ms. Martha?
Yes, I got it set.
Okay. All right, she looked at me like I made a mistake. All right. And so, again, we'll go with Commissioner Hill first, and then Candidate Rose. Your final closing statement.
Well, as I started out with, I am a product of District 5. I understand the struggles of District 5. I grew up here in District 5. I understand what it is to have the lights off. I understand what it is to be a paycheck away from homelessness. I was her. I understand what it is when your son or your daughter's in the back seat of a police car. I understand what it is when you want them to do the very best that they can and turn it around. I am her. I understand what it is to live in conditions that are deplorable and waiting for someone to rescue us. I am her. I understand what it is to be a business owner and needing just a little help to get your business off the ground. I had my own business. I understand. I show up. I have not gotten off the wall from day one. Yes, I've been here 8 years, and as I said, we don't have to guess who Regina Hill is. We don't have to guess how hard she will work for the people. The proof is right there. When you walk up and down the streets of Paramore, you remember what was not here 8 years ago. You see what's here. When you go down Orange Center, you remember what it looked like then. You see the difference. You can see the difference in the infrastructure, in the pathways, in the parks, in the beautification projects. You look at Lake Doon, you see the difference. When you go out to Mercy Drive, you know what Mercy Drive looked like. You know what it looked like now. When you go out to Carver Shores, you see the pride in the neighborhoods. When you go to HOA meetings, you always see me there. You see me in the trenches, not just in the boardroom. I have had an open door to anyone. I often got in trouble for giving all my budget money to the people. But I don't care, because it's yours. I am the people. I have not changed my ways, nor have I forgotten the people that sent me to City Hall. I think I deserve 4 more years. We deserve 4 more years. We still got work to do. But we came so far. And I say thank you all for standing with me through some of the toughest times I've had the last 8 years. Bearing a daughter, having troubles with losing loved ones, having troubles with children, raising a grandchild. But I have not stopped working for the people. Not one day. I got y'all back.
Thank you so much. Candidate Rose, again, your final remarks, and you will be given 2 minutes, 45 seconds.
Well, that's cutting.
She went over about 15 seconds.
I am Shaniqua Shan Rose. A time for change now is more than a campaign slogan. It is what we need. We can't continue down the same path. There is a lot of things that need to happen. We have to work together to bring neighbor back in neighborhood, and that's my goal. People have to get to know their neighbors. Businesses have to know businesses. I've been out here canvassing, and I mean, just today I had someone who's always in Paramore and said they didn't even know about foodies. I said their food is great, go check it out. So people have to get acclimated with the community, and that takes you all, the residents, the people, the stakeholders, coming in and giving your thoughts on how we can work together to make this a better District 5. We can't continue down the same path. We need change, and we need it now. I have a master's degree in public administration, so I get how government should work. I am a former city employee, so I was a product of how it was working. But now I am a proud business owner of a nonprofit where I mentor youth in this community and give them options and opportunities for the best. We have to work together to reduce crime, and we can only do that by changing socioeconomic status. We have to improve our infrastructure. Our roads are flooded. Our roads have potholes. We have to ensure that people can safely get on the bus. People can have a bus shelter at the bus. It's time for some change. It's time for some new leadership who's willing to roll up the sleeves and work with everyone. Listen to the people. and make this a better place where it's inclusive of everyone, from our seniors to our youth. And that means I want your vote on Tuesday, November 2nd, to be the next District 5 City Commissioner for someone who lives right here in the Paramore District 5 neighborhood, who works here, who plays here, and wants the best for our community.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give these two candidates a round of applause. You're doing a great job. I don't know about you, but I got a plethora of information to help make that would help me make a decision. I'm going to, at this point again, thank you for allowing me to moderate this, and I'm going to turn this over to the Carter Speaker. We're done. Well, good night, y'all.
I thought it was a great discussion. It was a well-attended event. There was a lot of good points both candidates made, and I look forward to see what the results will be on Election Day.
Educational. I thought there was a lot of information that was given, and I thought both candidates was good. That's what I think.
I think that tonight's forum was excellent, following the protocol, and certainly we did our research to make sure that the incumbent and the candidate had fair ground to walk on. The information was in depth. I think we got some good answers on these questions that should help individuals formulate an opinion as to what they should do when they get into the voting polls. So it was a great forum, and I'm honored to have been the moderator. God bless you.
Can you say your name? Because I want to put it on screen.
This is the Reverend Dr. Robert M. Spooney, Spooney.
Hi, I'm Carrie Williams, representative of Callahan Oaks Apartments. Been in Paramore all my life. Glad to be here today. Nice. Everything was nice. Thank you.
It's real strong, and we want to support that.
Hi. Well, I'm part of the Carter Street Neighborhood Association, so we were one of the neighborhood associations that sponsored tonight's event. I think we had a great turnout. It was good to see people here supporting both candidates and wanting to hear answers to some very good questions. So it's always important. The more you know, the more you get engaged in your community, the better things will be.
How you doing? I thought the forum was excellent. The pastor really had some great questions. Both candidates, they did a great job of answering them. And it's going to be interesting to see what the turnout is. It's going to be very interesting. It's pretty much the old versus the new, depending on how you look at it. Yes, we have a track record with the current commissioner, but, for someone on the outside looking in, I personally think that, development was going to happen anywhere because it's prime location, right next to downtown. So, no matter who's in charge of that development, but they do have an issue with crime, and I don't think people are really taking a notice of that right now. So, depends on who can get the people to come out to vote. All right?
Thank you. So this was not a debate, but it was undeniably an incredible forum. Both of them are passionate. We can't take away the things that Commissioner Hill has done for the community, but there's also other opportunities that Shaniqua has presented. So I thought it was really, really good. I can't wait to see what happens in November. I'm here for it. I'm not a Paramore resident, but I do serve here with my company. So it's really important to me to keep an eye on this because I also want the best for this community that we all love and serve.